UFC 270 right around the corner. Let's get into picks and predictions for Francis Ngannou and Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane is an incredibly dynamic heavyweight. He has a lot of different striking skills. He will use elbows, he's got a great jab, he throws high kicks, he throws knees right up the center. I mean, he really mixes all of his striking tools together incredibly well. And on top of that, oh yeah, he can wrestle. And he also throws submissions in there as well, although he doesn't have as many submission wins as Francis Ngannou does. But Ciryl Gane is going to come into this fight as a strategist. Let's use the Derek Lewis fight as a prime example of what I think he's going to try to do with Francis Ngannou, who is a heavy hitter like Derek Lewis. He's going to try to stick and move, to poke, to land accurate jabs, and bank on Francis Ngannou wearing out over the fight. If he can stay away over the longevity of the fight, those punches may be able to accumulate, and he's going to hope to win this fight in the latter rounds, as opposed to taking on Francis's strength head on in the first couple of rounds. The problem with that strategy is that Francis Ngannou is not Derek Lewis. Although they're both knockout artists and pack a ton of power, Francis Ngannou is much more athletic, and he can be chaotic if he wants to be or needs to be with his striking, but he can also clean it up really well. We saw against Stipe Miocic, it was actually a nice straight punch right down the center through the guard that landed on Stipe. Now, Francis may not be as dynamic in his striking, but he doesn't need to be. He needs to keep it simple and focus on landing the one shot that will get the job done. I'd also like to emphasize that Francis Ngannou's learning curve has been throughout the UFC against the best of the best, and he's now the champion. If you look at his career, when he fought Stipe Miocic the first time, he went out hot, guns blazing, gave it everything he had, and had to survive for basically 4 rounds because he gassed. He went out too hot. Then we saw him against Derek Lewis, where he was afraid to hit that level of exhaustion again. This was something that was clearly on his mind, and he kind of failed to pull the trigger, too cold. Sort of a Goldilocks story setting here. Since then, he's been just right. I'd also like to point out that his counter wrestling game has gone through the roof. We saw that against Stipe. That was the big question that had to be answered, was could he shut down the offensive wrestling of perhaps the greatest heavyweight to ever do it? He did it. As I factor all of these different things in, the work pace and the strategy and the dynamic athlete that Ciryl Gane is versus the simplified power puncher that's proven that his defensive wrestling has gotten leaps and bounds better. Put it on the weigh scale, 25 minutes is a long time for any man to stay away from the power that is Francis Ngannou. His conditioning is the best it's ever been. His wrestling is the best that it's ever been. And it only takes one shot. I'm picking Francis Ngannou. I don't know when he's going to get this done. A lot of people think his best chance is to get it done early. But I think with the conditioning that he has come accustomed to, it might actually be in the latter part of the fight, because that's when I think he might need to take more risk in order to start winning rounds or win the fight.